So today I want to talk about a major issue with food, how we can how we can solve it, and how this also may apply to other industries. So it's not only going to be food, but I'm mainly going to focus on food and the network. So let's get into the topic. And this is all about food transportation. When we first of all we waste a ton of food. Anywhere between 20 to 60% of our food globally is wasted. Estimates vary widely, more in Western countries. And the longer the distance is, the more the food gets wasted, because more of it's rotten. Also, if you're shipping food from one country to another country, you want to ship the best product so they become more selective, leading to more food being wasted. And a ton of things like that happen. So if we could get rid of all that food waste, we could feed more of the poor, we could use less land, we could cut down agricultural emissions, which is one of the biggest CO2 emissions, by that number. So a huge saving there. But not only that, the transportation itself of food has estimated to be 4% of all CO2 emissions of agriculture. It's an estimate. And to give you the idea of the scale that food is transported, it's usually estimated transport in Western societies over 1,000 miles to your local grocery store. So yeah, a huge thing, and food will also last longer if it's more fresh. And besides all that, it will reduce traffic on the street because the longer you have to travel, the more traffic, the more you're going to have cars on the road. The more times, also when you have more longer routes instead of just A or B as possibilities, you have routes with more possibilities. It's hard to optimize, figure out the best routes. It's harder to adapt to local conditions and make predictions. So you waste energy there. You waste energy at every stop you have to do. So if you have to do more stops, you're going to waste more energy with all the different stops you do. Beyond wasting more energy with all the stops you do, there's a lot of beyond that is you cause more traffic again, which causes more stops, which again wastes more energy. So it has feedback loop. You also cause other cars they causing traffic with to use more energy. So huge benefits, really hard to measure. But also locally grown food oftentimes uses a lot less CO2 because they grow food better for the environment, for that adapting. Small scale farmers are likely to be more organic or know how to raise foods. They're less likely to look at quantity, but more likely to look at quality. So this could really help with lowering CO2, greenhouse emission, water usage for the long haul, traffic issues, pollution in general, land usage, be more environmentally friendly. If you could reduce the travel, you could lead to more. It would also lead to more food locally because if it's hard to sell food very distant, you have to feed the more people nearby, and that means less starvation and less homeless people and less hungry people. Food is actually have in the whole world enough food to feed everyone. It's not in the right place, and oftentimes places with some of the most food and grocery markets have some of the highest rate of homelessness or people that don't have food. So yeah, America has more than enough food for everyone in the country by a lot, and we're an exporter of food. Yet not everyone here is fed food. So how do I propose a solution for it? And I'll get even more to the benefits of it and the problems with it. Well, I propose to start off with a simple tax on the distance food travels. And the farther the distance that food travels, the more you have to pay on it. This will mean that food will have to be more local and will be more profitable at a local level. So people will keep food more local. This will support local farmers more. It will support people with small scale farms. And it would really make people also more health conscious and aware of the food they get because they see it local. And it would also get rid of a lot of these bad industries. Like the avocado industry has there's a whole problem with gangs and drugs, and it's more profitable than drug warfare than drug gangs oftentimes. And there's also water uses in like Argentina that's led to a lot of people losing their livelihoods. If instead we don't buy as many avocados from other countries, and those countries start to make their own food, then they would lead to them having more food. And avocado is not a high production crop, it's a cash crop. So we would focus less on cash crops and more on crops that help people actually feed people. There's a similar problem with the cocoa industry and chocolate. Huge problem with the sugarcane industry. With that, the almond industry. Ton of industries have that huge problem. Ton of water usage, also in those ones, so they use up more water, hurting the environment. I'll link some documentaries in that. But yeah, more local, better for the environment. It's also easier for us to regulate because when we or inspect because it's local. A huge problem with like the honey industry is that honey produced abroad, we can't inspect the plants. We can't see if the plants are using real honey. There's been a lot of fake honey. We just can't inspect those plants, and sometimes they mislabel what country they're from or something like that. When it's local, it's a lot easier to see what's going on. So, again, this tax will help with that. However, there's some huge problems with just putting a tax on any of these items and that. Well, first of all, what if the price of food rises? What about second of all, what about the farmers? Third of all, what about the people living in food deserts? And I'm going to go through them one by one. Well, how can we help make sure farmers don't lose their livelihood? Well, I would argue producing more local food would be a huge benefit because they don't have to figure out complicated shipping. They can figure out easier shipping more of the local things. They could produce more crops that sell well for the local environment, implement stuff. But there is still a problem, and I think the easiest solution is the tax we put on this stuff goes into farmer support programs. It's just directly we support farmers, help them buy equipment, we have to talk to farmers, of course, about this, help subsidize food for them. We can also talk about other things, but yeah, every money we earn to this, we give it back to the farmers. Yeah. Other way we can help mitigate the problem is we can look at making sure that we give farmers, we get rid of sales tax. Sales tax has hurt farmers, hurts food in a lot of ways, but the basic sales tax on food, it makes food more expensive for poor people all around. It doesn't go to farmers, it just goes directly to government programs, and make food more affordable. And again, farmers would get it. So that would negate some of the price problem. Another one is just to build a better and cheaper transportation industry in the first place with better trains and stuff like that. That could also help a lot of the problem. And a third way we could help the problem, the last way we could help the problem is just better. We offer a massive buy. We spend extra money on supporting farmers, and that extra money will be on buying better irrigation, better crop insurance, and everything. And the last way I'll go is that we need to refigure out what food we subsidize and what food we do. We heavily subsidize sugarcane in the U.S. This means that sugarcane farmers, which is a massive farmers, they're not the small-scale farmers they're barely living by, make a ton of money. This money sugar hurts people. It really bad for your health. It's obvious. If we instead subsidize, if we took those subsidies and put them to broccoli, kale, and stuff that local farmers needed, they'll do a lot better, a ton better. And almost every food is in the U.S. subsidized, and farmers can't actually make a living without it. So it's not really, if you like it or not, that's not a question. It's like our economy would collapse without it. It's just a question, can we subsidize, put the money into food that's actually healthy and more worthwhile? So, to the second point, where it was, what about poor people that just can't afford food, or it raising the price of food? Well, all of this would indirectly and sometimes directly help with those issues. Getting rid of sales tax will make it easier. If transportation costs were lower because people transporting were lower, some of the costs up there gone rid of. All the farmer support means we could sell food for cheaper. So all of this would really help on the end of making sure that food is still affordable. The other one is expanding SNAP and other food programs. And SNAP is one of the cheapest programs in the US, and it helps some of the most people get food. So that would work. The third problem with my idea, food deserts, I want to first define what a food desert is, or food in accessible places. So, what is a food desert? Well, a food desert is a place that food is not very accessible. So here might be the Midwest, and I have a place where I can get a ton of food. We're rich and we're close to food. The perfect combination. Here's some town in I don't know, far away in New England that is, or New Mexico, somewhere where there's not a lot of food, good food, and they are poor. Well, the food here is going to be pricier, and it's going to be, and with my added tax, it might get even pricier because it's far away. Well, how do I fix those problems? First of all, I always talked about a lot of ways to make food cheaper. Second of all, if we expand SNAP programs and all of our programs just beyond what we normally do, it can really help those places. But another way is if we tax food, if we tax processed food also that's unhealthy, a lot more than the other ones for the same distance. This would mean that people eat healthier food and less food, which will also help these areas with a lot of problems with health. They're usually a lot less healthy because they only have unhealthy food available, but it'll make the other food that's healthier more affordable. I would think about like taxing sugar products instead of food products. The other way is that we can still make the average price the same, but it's also processed foods also cost more already because processed foods would cost more from this because they have transported ingredients from all over the place, and more ingredients which will make the price add up faster. So this will also promote eating not as processed foods more. The other way around this would be that all these subsidies I'm talking about would come into here and make the food cheaper and promote it. We can also promote local growing programs. So there's places that previously not have farms and stuff, we promote local community growing, which will help them earn money. I think a combination of all these could help them a lot and lead to a revolution. We can also make sure that the average tax rate doesn't impact prices too much when you take into account all these factors. And we can even give more subsidies for these specific areas. Also, if we can eventually promote more people to live in neighborhoods that are closer to farms, that would also help reduce the price. And it would also mean that there's less transport, which will lead to a positive feedback loop, which will increase all the benefits, but also leave more wilderness. So I think that's my answer for that. It's not a full answer. I think we can't put too much of tax immediately, and we have to slowly increase the programs at the right pace. But I want to get to one last benefit, and I think this will also stabilize the prices of the market much more and lead to a more robust economy. And here's the reason why. So I've talked a lot about networks and in some of my previous economic videos, but let's look at this simple network and let's talk about how everything in here is trading with something else. So if in case you're just listening and not watching it, I'm drawing a 3x3 grid with each square, each circle, which are at the corners of each square, next to the other one. In here, if I start in the bottom corner, A, I only immediately affect the adjacent corners, which I'm going to just label both B, which are going to only affect C, which are going to affect C, which are then going to affect D, then E. So I have to go through at least 3 other squares just to affect the other top corner from the bottom corner. This means there's a lot of other impacts that could happen that could dull the effect. So if A starts weakening, the price goes down, or starts going up really fast, you have this buffer B here. It's interacting with B, but you also have a buffer of C and a buffer D before it reaches E, and that's going to really buffer the effects. But even if it doesn't buffer it, it's just going to take time for it to trigger. It might totally disappear because you just trade through so many hands. There's so many other effects. However, in the case that A really is connected straight, is not connected to B, the local one of the local ones, it's connected to one of the B. I'll try to describe the picture. It's connected to E all the way over here. So now I raised the bottom, the bottom connection to B in the grid, and I instead took that one connection and connected it all the way to the top E. It only has to go through one to immediately impact E, so it can have a much wider, faster impact globally. And before, the farthest away from anything, it was 3 spaces. Now if you look at the grid, it's just 1 space is the farthest away it's from anything. Well, actually 2 spaces. For most things, it's only 1 space away from, or 0 spaces away from. It's a lot quicker to reach anything, so it can have a bigger effect much quicker. And that means you don't have all these stabilizing forces. Things can go out of whack so much faster. So this idea of local transport would also just make the whole economy a lot more stable, and also better regulations because you can inspect the whole thing better, and the regulations will be less costly because it's easier to do it locally. Would mean that, yes, and also people that just buy the stuff locally more likely to see the farms and stuff. It means the whole economy will be more stable. But also, with all these small interactions, we force more small interactions that have a whole video with. And small and local interactions tend to be smaller, more personal. And also more personal ones, you tend to help each other more and spread out the money more evenly in a more robust manner, instead of it all pooling into one place. Such as in the previous thing, when I drew E connected directly, E has a lot more connected, and A becomes a lot more connected, and they'll get a lot more money, and they'll become a lot richer faster, and they will have unfair control, and that'll cause inflation, and that'll cause less affordability for other people. So it also makes the whole economy more affordable, not only more stable. And the last thing is it'll be more predictable, so we will have less problems and less of a market that's like, it'll go up, it might go down, and people will also just make wiser decisions, which will lead better. So these are all the benefits such a system could do. But I think we should even think about extending it to other things, from promoting local services to local manufacturing clothes to other things. The thing is, we should only promote it for things that actually can be done locally. We should not promote it to every industry. So a high-tech pharmaceutical company, high-tech chemicals that we only have 1 ton a year, yeah, let's not promote that locally. If we're talking about water, it might be something to think about. If we're talking about water's not the best, well, fertilizer, other things, but also more services, like promoting local services like computer repairs, shoe cleaning, dry cleaning, stuff like that more locally. Stuff that can be done locally. It might be an idea to think about this. I also see another huge problem, which I forgot to mention, and this is the last problem, is that this system does not work well if we're talking about other countries. Because when it comes to other countries, the other countries can have huge problems with trying to figure out where it came from. So to fix this problem a little bit is more, we have to add some flat rate from every country approximating where it comes from. So it's harder to get around it and figure out and we don't have to figure out the supply chain as much. It's not a perfect solution. Totally fair. We also should add differing rates depending on how it's transported, because shipping is a lot more green and than air transport. It releases about 50 times less carbon. Ground travel is somewhere in between, but also the speed. Ground travel is a lot faster, so less food goes to waste than shipping. Air travel is the fastest, but it's the least one. Shipping is probably used the best in between, but shipping has its own ballast problems. And as the technology changes, we should update these laws. Also, as the market changes, we should update these laws. If local food becomes more affordable, then we should start thinking about increasing these taxes, because then it becomes better to increase the taxes. As the local market develops, the taxes should increase. It also is a country-by-country basis. It depends on how much food your country needs. We should not apply this tax, in my opinion, to food that goes outside the U.S. as much, because we do feed other countries, unless it's something like sugar or something that is not a real food as much. Well, thank you very much. I hope you found this informative. I hope it made you think about this problem, and if you have any ideas or comments about doing this, please leave it in the comment section below. And also, if you know my contact, DM me. So really, please like this video and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers within a year, which is really, really ridiculously hard, but I think it's possible, and 4,000 watts hours. I'm doing better actually in watts hours than subscribers. Thank you very much. Bye.